forests of Washington, where the bizarre is just another Tuesday, comes a show for the weird, the wild, and the WTF. In a world gone mad, one man stands between the headlines and your sanity. This is Burn After Listening, hosted by Matt Charlo.
Howdy, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Burn After Listening. It's been a minute, I'll fully admit. I got a little bit busy last summer and then life just kind of got away from me, but figured out it's a good time to come back. Right, the world's in chaos. We're on the verge of World War III, maybe, perhaps all the way up to World War Ocho, given how things are going, how things are progressing, and life doesn't seem to be getting any easier or any better. Never mind the fact that I'm about to turn 44 in 3 days, and so the way I look at it is I'm kind of at that halfway point. So I might as well at least have myself a little bit of fun, point out the absurdities while I can, laugh at the dumb shit, and I don't know, ride that nuclear bomb all the way down to our own destruction. Anyway, Burn After Listening welcomes you back. Hope you guys out there have been having yourselves like as good of a day as you can. We're going to be laughing about some stuff today, and it goes to show you that one thing you can never, ever, ever discount to not be funny. It's always going to be funny, of course, is going to be corporate America, because corporate America is going to keep on chugging along regardless of whether or not our natural resources are in decline. The world is on fire, and we might all be dying at the hands of madmen with nuclear bombs. Maybe I'm coming across a little bit pessimistic for the return. For that, I apologize. But as just kind of where I'm at right now, I'm just kind of thinking about it. You know what I mean? Big 44, middle-aged, that's a thing. People born between 1970 and 1980 are now dying at, or 1985, I should say, are dying at kind of alarmingly high rates, one of which we'll talk about with the OnlyFans CEO today dying at my age, actually. So to me, again, I'm in this weird mindset right now where I'm like, I'm going to laugh about shit. I got no control over it. So we might as well have a little bit of fun. Of course, that is Burn After Listening. So we got a wide variety of stories today to dive into. So why don't we just dive into the first one here? And that, of course, is Disney will never not be Disney. In fact, today they have put out the very first trailer for the Moana reboot, the live action Moana reboot starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and some new girl who I don't quite know who she is. Now, you might be asking yourself, Matt, this is a show about weird news. This is a show about weird shit. What the fuck are you doing talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and, of course, the new Moana live action reboot? That's a movie thing. That's not weird shit. Well, actually, it kind of is, because I want to talk with you guys about the mystery of Maui's missing nipples. Take a look at this right here. So this is an image showcasing Maui from the 2016 Disney animated movie and Maui from the 2026 live action film. And never mind the fact that original Maui still looks good. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson 10 years later as a deflated football version of Maui looks like the Timu knockoff. But you can see in the image here that Maui on the left, the Disney animated movie, he got them nipples. They're small, they're tiny, but they're still the milk duds. They're still there. And then you look at the right side image here, and you know what? There's no nipples. There's no nipples. There's none whatsoever. This is not really what I would call that huge of a deal, I'll fully admit, okay? But it is a little bit of like an absolute visual horror show. And that's probably the best way to look at this new Disney live action reimagining, right? Last year they brought out, what was it? Both Lilo and Stitch and Snow White. Snow White cratered. Lilo and Stitch did really well. So obviously Moana is going to be big. That was a big one from 10 years ago. And you just have to ask yourself why they're making Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson look the way that he is. He's kind of looking like an oversized Ken doll, fresh out of some weird unboxing video you might find on the deep web. And then apparently Disney decided throughout some course of action here that the animated Maui, just he didn't have the pronounced nipples. So they thought, let's just get rid of them entirely. So they have either put him in a bodysuit or they have had to have a visual effects artist go in and manually remove his nipples from every single frame. And you know what that reminds me of, just kind of all things considered? Back in 2015, there was a movie that came out called 50 Shades of Grey. And 50 Shades of Grey is a terrible film. It's a terrible, terrible trilogy of movies, terrible trilogy of books. But the one interesting factoid that I always kind of go back to, the one that I always kind of think back to, is the fact that there is a scene in the movie where Christian Grey is getting ready to go down on Anastasia Steele for like the first time, right? And it's meant to be this kind of like, sweet scene where she's kind of losing her innocence. And, he's like pulling down the underwear. So we get a little bit of a shot from the side. You see a little bit of her pelvis. And then you see that she has got pubic hair. Now, pubic hair is obviously not something that's uncommon. I would actually make the argument that more women should probably rock the pubes rather than not. But the interesting thing, and the reason why I bring it up, is those pubes did not exist. In that sequence, in that movie, those pubes did not exist. Some digital artist hired by Universal Studios had to go in there with a brush and manually add pubic hair to Dakota Johnson's genitals in order to capture the essence of her being an inexperienced, non-landscaped young lady. And here Disney's kind of doing the same thing by taking away the nipples. And you really you have to almost stop and like really kind of think about like the corporate machine behind this particular decision. I mean, Disney is spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to make Dwayne The Rock Johnson look like a demigod. And they're going out and they're meticulously recreating the ocean, and they're building all of these practical island sets, and they've got the pig, but then they've got the hey, right? The chicken is going to end up being all CG and everything else. But somebody in like a boardroom actively had to like approve the massive VFX budget in order to take away the nips, right? To get rid of a grown man's areolas, because that is how much we fear the nipple in our society, right? There's been a big move, with breastfeeding women for the whole free the nipple movement, but that's on women, right? Men's nipples, I think they weird people out, to be honest with you. I really do. I think they weird people out in many different ways. And so, yes, somebody was paid hours and hours and hours and hours to go frame by frame, pixel by pixel, and get rid of the nipples in order to make sure that they didn't offend somebody somewhere. Because people are going to get mad over every little fucking detail. That never changes. Like, it never, ever, ever changes. But of course, that is just simply the stupid world that we live in. And it does also highlight the reason that these shot-for-shot live-action remakes are just creatively bankrupt. They look terrible compared to their animated side, counterpart. All right. Look at like Lilo and Stitch, bright, colorful animation, bright colors. It's Hawaii. Hawaii is kind of known for that. The live action movie looked very bland. It looked very demure. It didn't look like you're in Hawaii. It just looked like you were, shooting through something that just didn't have great color quality to it. And then, you look at this one, it's kind of the same way. And an interesting little side thought to this. One thing that I've heard of, Netflix reportedly does this, is they want the color palettes more muted, because if the color palettes are muted, then it's less data that it takes in order to be able to stream those movies. And I'm just kind of wondering if Disney is doing the same thing, considering the fact that they auto push 4K UHD or 4K HDR on all of their new movies, right? And so those are like absolute data suckers. Those are absolute bandwidth usage suckers, all of that stuff. And I'm wondering if they end up doing that. But again, you guys don't give a shit about that. We're here talking about missing nipples, not the entire corporate structure of how Disney does their business. I have a lot of interest, folks. Missing nips in filmmaking is definitely part of that. But obviously, it is still something that we need to look at, point at, laugh at, and then also realize that this next story is very much taking us into a total what the ever loving fuck situation. So over on British Airways, a corpse happens to appear in a flight, right? Someone dies. Okay. And they have to put the corpse somewhere. So they put it in a galley for 13 hours, and then people complain about the smell. Obviously, the image on screen right here is it's AI. It's not real. Okay. But here's how we shift from the Hollywood weirdness to the grim reality of commercial air travel, especially right now with TSA in the United States being as bad as it is. All right. So look, the corporate indifference has reached like an all new cruising altitude of terrible. So on a recent 13-hour flight from British Airways to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong to London, a woman passed away. Now, sadly, she died about an hour and a half after takeoff. And probably any normal person would be like, okay, fine, medical emergency, turn the plane around. Let's just, get the body off, everything else. This isn't a cruise ship. On a cruise ship, if somebody dies, they've got a morgue. They've got cold storage. They will put the body there in order to be able to give it back to the family when they finally get to the port that they can, remove the body from. They're prepared for this sort of thing. But airlines, obviously not so much. So you would think that in this situation, they would just turn the plane around, go back to Hong Kong, offload the body, and then call it a day. Nope. The captain decided that since she was already dead, it was really no longer what they would call a medical emergency at all, right? So they were just going to keep going. So this is a 13-hour flight. We're talking hour and a half, 2 hours into the flight. Woman croaks. Captain's like, well, I mean, she's already dead. Like, what's the worst that could happen? So fun fact about the human body, and this is really where it goes from like a dark. So here's a fun fact about the human body. And this is where it kind of turns into a bit of a dark dystopian comedy of errors. After 90 minutes, the body enters into rigor mortis, and that can last anywhere up to like 18 hours. Okay. So also decomposition starts immediately. Now, the crew, to their credit, were like, we got a plane full of people here. We got to figure out what to do. We got to make sure that we are on the right track for this. Like, we got to make sure that we're not traumatizing people. So they decided initially, like, we should just put this lady in the bathroom, right? We're just going to put her in the bathroom, set her up there, right? Seal it off. 11 hours. We'll be fine. Okay. No, that was quickly vetoed. Probably because they only had maybe one bathroom, two bathrooms on the flight, and people got to use the bathroom if this thing's going to be a nonstop from, Hong Kong to London. So what they did is they wrapped her up and then they stashed her in the back galley near where they prepared all the meals. Because, nothing says, hey, fly with us like contaminated foodstuffs. They forgot, though, and this is where it gets really bad. They forgot that this specific part of the galley has heated floors. So for the next 11 to 12 hours, they had wrapped this woman's body as it is already entering into not only the rigor mortis state, but the actual decomposition state. And they put her on a heated floor where the decomposition is then going to intensify and it is going to accelerate. And so for the next 12 hours, there is an Airbus A3550 flying across the globe with a reverse makeshift morgue that is baking the body. It's like the worst kind of crematorium. They did not know what they were doing with this. And so after a while, people in the back, as well as all the first class passengers, started to notice a smell. And they were complaining about it wafting through the cabin for the entirety of the flight. Now, what does that tell you? For one, horrible mistakes were made. And whoever was on that flight, they should probably be getting not only their money back, but like free flights for life, because that is some horrible, nasty ass shit. But it also really kind of points to the problem in late stage capitalism. Like, this is a masterclass of it. A human dies, and instead of putting it in a situation where they might be able to contain not only the decomposition but the smell, the airline decides, even then, it decides against going back, that it's actually better for their bottom line to continue moving forward, and they put her on a heated floor for half a day. I mean, what how do you come back from that? How do you even remotely come back from that? How do you, as a company, British Airways, by the way, so they're not like new, they're not Pendejo Airlines, like they're not fucking new. But how do you come back from that? I don't even know. But it just goes to show you that, a half a day of discomfort and smells is still better than, using extra jet fuel right now, considering what's happening in Iran. So there you have it on that one. But again, the absurdities, guys, they continue on. They absolutely continue on, because Mark Zuckerberg, I don't even think Mark, again, is a real boy. I think he's so desperate to be a real boy and have friends. But Mark Zuckerberg building or builded, if I could speak today, an AI CEO to help him run Meta. Yeah. So you know how we were just talking about one dystopian nightmare. Now we get to move on to one set in the tech industry. So right now, Meta is in the middle of like a massive reconstructing phase, right? They are flattening teams. They're ending, I think, part of like the metaverse thing where they spent is like $80 million on, or whatever the hell, 80 billion probably, knowing Mark Zuckerberg, in order to be able to create this virtual reality AI-based world that looked like it was made from the Nintendo Mii's when the Nintendo Wii dropped, 20 fucking years ago. But right now, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy who has spent his entire public life trying to convince not only Congress, but the American public that he's not a robot, that he's not actually Data from Star Trek, is now creating a robot to do his job, which seems, like, I'm not going to sit there and say that it doesn't kind of make sense, right? If you're pushing the idea that AI robots, AI agents, whatever, have the ability to go on in and then, do all of these tasks, it almost seems like that would be something that they would eventually do. Like Jensen Huang was talking about this the other day with NVIDIA, and he's saying, like, I imagine a world, and I'm maybe paraphrasing this, where like everyone has like 100 agents working for them. And I don't even know what the fuck that would look like. And I like AI, and I don't even know what the fuck that would look like. But for me, I'm like, all right, so you're building like an AI version of yourself, a robot version of yourself, the CEO agent, to help run Facebook and Meta. I mean, could you just like get rid of the bots? Maybe open up the API a little bit so I can bulk post to my groups? I don't know. But right now, what he's really wanting to do with this is create like this advanced internal AI that is designed to help him specifically bypass middle management, rapidly gather the data that he needs, and then streamline his executive decisions. But not like Steven Seagal dying in the movie Executive Decision from 1997. No, this is unfortunately a way worse scenario. But really what it boils down to here is like, this is like peak Silicon Valley hubris. You know what I mean? Like, they are, I said restructuring, they're flattening teams, they're laying people off, and Zuckerberg is like pushing its employees to actively build these AI tools, which will, I don't want to say like inevitably replace them, but they are going to become a higher priority within the company. And it will probably see fewer people being hired because you're going to have the AI running those tasks. But that unfortunately also is just part of, the progress, right? Like, we all like human interaction, at least for the most part. But still, when you go to Safeway or you go to the store, do you use the self-checkout, or do you go wait in that slow ass line in order to go talk to a human? I don't know about you. Usually I'm in a hurry. So I go to the self-checkout. I prefer self-checkout because then I don't have to interact with anybody, and that's also a big part of just like where we are as a society and like how we've moved away from getting to know people more or less, and how we spend a lot of time kind of isolated and by ourselves and doom scrolling our phones. So yeah, maybe we are all the problem here, I guess, right? But there is a level of irony here that is pretty hilarious because you've got a CEO of a tech company building an AI version of himself to run the company. And that on its own is just too good to ignore, and that's what I'm saying. Like, Mark Zuckerberg probably doesn't really have any real friends, but there's really only kind of like one outcome to this, I think. And that's going to be when the AI CEO starts to look at Meta's quarterly reports, its declining user base, its declining ad sales, its vast expenses over these projects like the metaverse that have died horrible deaths, right? Never mind metagaming when they tried doing that. That didn't last very long either. And it looks at everything, and the AI then decides that the most cost effective and financially efficient business move is to fire Mark Zuckerberg. Now, if that ever happens, I would laugh my ass off because I could imagine a scenario where the AI CEO goes around Mark Zuckerberg, goes to the board of Meta and lays out its evidence and says it is not financially viable to keep this person on the payroll. And then the board, and here's the thing you guys have to remember is that, these companies, they only have one responsibility. It's not to the customers. It's always to the shareholders. And if they can maximize their share price by saving money, by eliminating, Mark Zuckerberg from the equation, you bet your ass that they would. And it would be really funny because even then, Mark Zuckerberg's bottom line would probably go up. Like I said, the absolute chaos that would leak out of the Meta boardroom over this kind of stuff would be hilarious and would give Aaron Sorkin enough content to write 20 movies on. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it, to be fair. As much as I like AI, as much as I enjoy all this kind of stuff, I really don't like Mark Zuckerberg. And I would be very, very, very happy to watch him, walk the corporate plank, so to speak. But let's shift gears to something a bit sadder and also, well, also kind of sad because it's dealing with death. But the OnlyFans creator, Leonid Radvinsky, he dies at 43 years old following a secret battle with cancer. And I was thinking about that because, for one, I'm 43 for a couple more days, and I'm worried about cancer, right? I quit smoking 20 years ago, all that jazz. But this guy, man, like this guy literally created another form of cancer, a digital form of cancer. And I'm not against gooning. Okay. I think you should rock out with your cock out when you are completely by yourself. And if you want to pay somebody for feet pics or butthole pics, I'm not against that. I don't have any problem with that. What you do in the privacy of your own home is you. Okay. Now, if you end up getting caught by your wife and it kills your marriage, again, that's your fault, not my fault, not their fault, because they're just selling a product. But at the same time, so many women have turned to OnlyFans or equivalent to OnlyFans as a way to make extra money because of where society goes. And sex is always going to sell. It's always going to sell. I think, was it Bonnie Blue got booted off of OnlyFans because she was going to get like a 1,000-person gangbang or something, and it was just like, they're like, whoa, man, like, look, you can put a marker up your ass, but fucking 1,000 dudes in a day, that's way too much. But that's that's my take on OnlyFans, at least. So it is crazy to think about this, though, where, Leo Radvinsky here, dying at the age of 43. He's a notoriously secretive billionaire, hid his cancer. And this guy, no, sorry, he's not the creator. I was wrong. He's just he owns it. He bought the platform back in 2018 and then took a 20% cut of basically the entire internet's digital sex work economy. It's a great system for capitalists. This guy was making a ton of money off of literally the barebacks of a lot of women and dudes. I'm not going to discriminate. There's a lot of people on there, and trans people I think are on there as well. Look, there's everyone's got their kinks. You know what I mean? It's perfectly fine. But you really cannot overstate the sheer scale of what Leo built, and then ultimately like was controlling from the shadows. Right? That's like the weird thing about it. That's kind of why I think this story is so interesting. So like during the pandemic, he essentially re-engineered like the modern gig economy, during the time when everybody was home and people weren't working. And sure, a lot of them are getting paid. Not me. I was doing food delivery, like a chump. Should have been out there, shaking my wang and been like, you like you like some twigs and berries. Anyway, but what you've got is you've got all of these women, right? Teachers, nurses, celebrities flocking to this platform just to survive, or to cash in on what is really known as a massively captive audience. And there was a lot of people that built their entire organizations. They built everything, back in 2020 during the shutdown because people were home and were desperate for content. But really, this guy created a system that, like, very much altered parasocial relationships as well as digital monetization, and it didn't just, like, stay with OnlyFans. It really moved itself outwards, like, TikTok and YouTube and other platforms as well, where it's like, even when I was live streaming movie stuff, I'd have people that were channel members, and they would make, like, I don't wanna say, like, demands, but it's like, they would get kinda parasocial about it. I had one guy that would want me to do karaoke all the time. And I can't sing for shit, but he would like drop like 40, $50 for me to sing a song, and it was just like people were like, don't do it, don't do it. But I'm like, this guy's paying like good money to have me embarrass myself for 2.5 minutes. I might as well fucking do it, you know? And then he disappeared for a while, but even he's coming back now. And I'm like, we're not doing karaoke again. Times have changed or my price has gone up. But that's my whole point, is that like that kind of captive audience with a lot of money coming in and really not much to spend it on if you're not going anywhere, kind of push that, and it's weird to look at it through this analogy, but it's almost like he was like the Wizard of Oz for like a modern smut empire, pulling the levers from behind the scenes while making an absolute shit ton of money. But now we get into I would argue, the more interesting aspect of things, because now that he's gone, there's a vacuum, right? There's a power vacuum here, and we don't quite know what's going to happen yet. This is a platform that operates entirely on user trust and like creator payouts. And his ownership was reportedly moved into a trust, but there have been rumors of a sale and the company itself being valued at over 5 billion, but nobody really knows what happens next. Right? And there's a lot of people right now. We're talking millions of OnlyFans creators around the world, from like massive influencers to just people trying to like pay their rent or get fucking baby food. And they aren't going to know if their platform is going to be bought and sold by another company. Like, the guy who owns Pornhub or something, right? Or the guy who owns Brazzers or one of those companies. I could see Pornhub doing it and then integrating it in there. That is one of those elements where you're like, I don't know what's going to go on here, guys. Like, this could get a little bit crazy. And they may not know really what's going to happen next, because the platform lost its architect, right? It lost its wizard. And so now we're going to wait to see if Emerald City will fall. And that is going to be where things get really fucking interesting. But for the final story tonight, I want to move over to talking about a different story. This is a story of a guy named Dayton Weber, 27 years old, and he just so happens to be a professional cornhole player who also happens to be a quadruple amputee. Homie's got no arms, no legs, but, and this is a big but, he's been accused of murder. Oh, yes, folks, accused of murder. This happens in Maryland, where the police are claiming that Weber shot a man in the head who was sitting in the passenger seat of his Tesla before pulling the car over and telling the people in the back seat to dump the body. So, yeah, think about that for a second, right? Let's stop for a moment and kind of process the craziness here, shall we? And also, I mean, look, what are like the raw mechanics of this crime? You got a dude in a Tesla. Okay, fine. No arms, no legs. Okay, right? Just sitting there. Somehow, according to the authorities, whips out a gun, fires it into the head of a passenger, kills him. Right? I mean, not only is he already operating a vehicle without the ability to steer it or control the gas or brake, but then he also is able to aim, fire, and handle the recoil of a handgun going off in a small compartment. I mean, listen, the Tesla autopilot software is pretty fucking good. Let's not deny that. It's pretty fucking good. There's a lot of goodness there, but I don't think it's that good, right? I don't think it has the ability to like line up your shot for you. Now, the logistical gymnastics required to pull off a solo drive-by shooting with zero extremities sounds almost like something that would come out of a rejected Quentin Tarantino script, but also at the same time, something that would be the most wild part of a Quentin Tarantino script that everyone would be like, yo, dude, the quadruple amputee killing the guy part of that movie was fucking wild. But it also kind of makes you question, the police report, right? Like the audacity of the police report is kind of out there, right? Like, are we dealing with a telekinetic assassin? Was he able to use mind bullets to take out this guy in the passenger seat of his car? Where did the gun go? What kind of gun was it? Did he like watch the movie Home Alone and then rig up some kind of elaborate string and pulley system inside of the driver's seat? While the Tesla was in autopilot mode, he was, using his teeth to toss a string around the rearview mirror in order to tie it around the trigger of the gun. And then also, how the fuck did he cock the gun? Right? What kind of fucking gun is it? These are things I want to know. But what's even crazier about this, I think, is that the cops are actively pushing the narrative that he acted completely alone, without any physical help pulling the trigger from the other passengers in the car. Yeah, it's baffling. It's baffling. This is the ultimate, like, true fucking crime story that Netflix is going to be itching to make a documentary about. And honestly, I'm kind of waiting for the courtroom reenactment because I'm going to want to see how the prosecutors are going to be able to actively showcase how this guy was able to do all of those things while having no arms, no legs, driving a car, and operating a firearm. What the fuck? It's just, it's absolutely nuts, folks. It's absolutely insane. But this, of course, is Burn After Listening, which is the kind of stuff we talk about here. Anyway, thank you guys very much for listening to this episode today. I hope to do this a lot more often. I love talking about the weird shit, the crazy shit, the wild shit. And of course, if you have any suggestions for some stories, you can let me know in the comment section. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you again for watching. Have yourself a great day. And remember, the weird shit only gets weirder when we laugh at it. That doesn't make any sense. Don't mind me. I don't have a good outro, but